If somehow you can hear my voice before life brings us together, then I have only one request. Please don't give up on love before we even meet. Because somewhere in this world, there's a man who is still believing in you, still praying for you, and still refusing to let this broken world convince him that real love no longer exists. Ma, I don't know your name. I don't know what city you live in. Bands, I don't know what your smile looks like or what dreams keep you awake at night. From Lins, I don't know what you've been through, how many tears you've cried, or how many times your heart has been disappointed. Jen, but somehow I believe you exist, not because life has promised me that everything will be easy. Band, but because hope has always whispered something stronger than fear. And for a long time I wondered if believing in someone I had never met made me foolish. Foolish. People around me laughed when I talked about waiting for the right person. They told me the world had changed. They said loyalty was old-fashioned. They said commitment had become too rare to expect anymore. They told me to stop dreaming and start settling. There were moments when I almost believed them. And after enough disappointments, even the strongest hearts begin asking difficult questions. Maybe they're right. Oh, maybe genuine love only exists in stories. Maybe everyone eventually gives up. Maybe I should stop waiting. Blazed, but every time those thoughts entered my mind, something deep inside refused to surrender. Bance, because I realized that if I stopped believing in the kind of love I wanted, I would slowly become the kind of person I never wanted to be. And hope isn't just about expecting someone else to arrive. Hope is about protecting your own heart from becoming cynical. Abainda. So wherever you are today, future wife, I hope you haven't allowed pain to convince you that every heart is the same. Jean, I hope one person's betrayal hasn't become everyone else's punishment. Menda, I hope you still believe there are people who choose honesty when lying would be easier. Then people who remain loyal even when nobody is watching. Then people who protect trust because they understand how difficult it is to rebuild once it's broken. Because I'm trying every day to become one of those people. Life has taught me many lessons. Some came through success, most came through heartbreak, every goodbye left behind a question, every disappointment forced me to grow. Every season of waiting shaped parts of my character that comfort never could. Mond, if I'm honest, there were nights when I questioned everything. Nights when I stared at the ceiling, wondering whether you were real, or simply an idea my heart had created to survive loneliness. Jen, maybe you've had nights like that too. Maybe you've wondered whether your person is still out there. Jackson, maybe you've almost stopped believing because every chapter you've lived so far has ended with disappointment instead of forever. Maines, if that's your story, please don't let temporary pain become a permanent belief. Pain tells convincing lies. Hence, it says you'll never trust again. It says nobody will ever stay. It says every promise eventually breaks. But pain isn't a prophet, it's only a season, and seasons always change. Men's, while waiting for you, I've learned that loneliness isn't my enemy. Desperation is. Loneliness encourages reflection. Van's desperation encourages bad decisions. Loneliness teaches patience. Desperation teaches compromise. Bland, and I've seen too many people confuse the fear of being alone with the desire to be loved. Bleens, those two things are completely different. I don't want you to choose someone simply because silence became uncomfortable. Mon, I don't want you to accept less than you deserve because everyone else seems to be moving ahead, please. Donna, wait for peace, wait for respect, wait for someone whose actions consistently match their promises. If that someone is me, then every extra day of waiting will be worth it. And while life prepares us to meet, I've been trying to prepare myself not by becoming perfect, but by becoming better. I've learned how to apologize without defending my mistakes. Jan, I've learned how to listen without immediately trying to prove I'm right. Bean, I've learned that kindness isn't something reserved for special occasions. It's a daily decision. Bane, I've learned that trust is earned through consistency, not beautiful speeches. Meters, I've learned that love grows strongest where honesty feels safe. Maybe you're learning your own lessons too. Maybe life is teaching you patience while it's teaching me perseverance. Maybe it's teaching you forgiveness while it's teaching me humility. Simply, maybe we're both growing in different places so that one day we'll recognize each other not because we're perfect. But because we're finally ready, sometimes I imagine what your life looks like right now. Bland, maybe you're working hard toward your dreams. Maybe you're helping your family through difficult times. Maybe you're quietly healing from wounds nobody else knows about. Men's, maybe you're sitting alone wondering if anyone in this world is praying for your happiness. If you are, the answer is yes. I may not know your face, but I already hope you smile more than you cry. To Menzians, I hope you're surrounded by people who remind you of your worth. Benz, I hope you've never allowed disappointment to steal your gentle heart, most of all. I hope you never mistake delay for rejection. Lens, because life has a remarkable way of protecting us through timing we don't immediately understand. Gemd, I've learned not to rush chapters that haven't been written yet. Flowers bloom in different seasons. And mean tremps, trees grow at different speeds. Sunrises never apologize for arriving exactly when they're meant to. Shemdrits, maybe love works the same way. Maybe we're not late. Maybe we're simply growing. Men's, one day, our separate journeys will become one shared story. But until then, I have one request. Mans, please don't stop believing before we even have the chance to meet, because if you give up today, if you decide that love is no longer worth believing in, if you build walls so high that nobody can ever reach your heart, then maybe we'll walk past each other one day without ever realizing what we almost had. That thought breaks my heart more than loneliness ever could. And I often wonder how many beautiful love stories never begin because two wounded people become too afraid to trust again. Jane, not because they stopped needing love, because they stopped believing it was possible. Fear has a strange way of disguising itself as wisdom. It whispers, protect yourself, don't trust anyone. Land, don't open your heart again, and little by little, protection quietly becomes isolation. Mender, though, the walls that once kept pain out, eventually begin keeping love out too. I hope that never happens to you, Shabans, because while you're trying to protect your heart from being broken, someone else may be preparing to protect it forever. I know life isn't always fair. Jans, maybe someone made promises they never intended to keep. Maybe someone walked away without explaining why. Jen, maybe someone made you question your own worth. If that's true, please hear me carefully. Bland's, their inability to value you is not proof that you were difficult to love. And sometimes people lose extraordinary things simply because they never learned how to appreciate them. May never measure your value by someone else's inability to recognize it. I've made mistakes too. I've trusted the wrong people. I've believed words that were never supported by actions. I've waited for apologies that never came. I've spent nights wondering whether I could have done something differently. But eventually I understood something life had been trying to teach me all along. Not every goodbye is punishment. Some goodbyes are protection. Some closed doors don't keep blessings away. They guide us toward better ones. Mond, if I had forced certain relationships to survive, I might never have become the man I'm trying to be today. Pain introduced me to patience. Disappointment introduced me to wisdom. Waiting introduced me to purpose. And maybe your journey has been doing the same for you. Maybe every difficult chapter has quietly been preparing you for a relationship that couldn't have survived with the older version of yourself. Smeen growth rarely feels exciting while it's happening. It's uncomfortable, it's lonely, sometimes it feels unfair. But looking back, you realize every lesson had a purpose. I also want to tell you something I've never told anyone else. Sometimes I pray for you, not because I know where you are, but because I believe someone somewhere deserves those prayers. I pray that you're safe. I pray that you're healthy. I pray that life is shaping your character without stealing your kindness. I pray that when disappointment visits your life, it leaves behind wisdom instead of bitterness. And I pray that no matter how many reasons the world gives you to stop believing, hope quietly stays alive inside your heart. People sometimes ask me why I still believe in forever. Jen, my answer is simple, because forever doesn't begin on a wedding day. Forever begins every time someone chooses integrity over convenience. Every time someone remains loyal when nobody would know the difference. Every time someone speaks honestly despite the risk, every time someone forgives without becoming weak. Band forever is built through ordinary decisions repeated consistently. That's the kind of relationship I hope we build someday. Vain, not one that looks perfect online, one that feels peaceful behind closed doors. Fans, one where we celebrate each other's victories without jealousy. One where difficult conversations don't become dangerous conversations. Blend, one where we protect each other's dreams as carefully as our own. Vinji, one where home isn't defined by the house we live in, but by the atmosphere we create together. C. And coming home after the hardest day of your life and knowing someone is genuinely happy to see you. Being able to speak honestly without fearing judgment, laughing over little mistakes instead of turning them into arguments. Malden, growing older without growing apart, watching ordinary days slowly become extraordinary memories. That's the kind of future worth waiting for. Not because it's perfect, because it's real. Dean, as time passed, I stopped asking when we'd meet. Instead, I started asking whether I'd recognize you. Not by your appearance. Jane, not by your voice, not by coincidence. I'd recognize you by your character, by the peace your presence brings. Blended by the consistency between your words and your actions. Bound by the kindness you show people who can offer you nothing in return. By the way you remain gentle without becoming weak. Character speaks a language louder than beauty ever could. And I hope you'll recognize me the same way, not because I say beautiful things, but because my everyday choices reveal who I truly am, because words can impress, character convinces. That's why I'm no longer afraid of waiting. Manja, I'm only afraid of becoming impatient enough to settle for less than the love we both deserve. And so if you're tired today, rest. If you're hurting, heal. If you're disappointed, don't allow disappointment to become your identity. If you've been crying, know that tears often water the strongest seasons of growth, but please, don't close your heart before destiny has the chance to knock. Elaine, don't mistake your current chapter for your entire story. And don't believe that because love hasn't arrived yet. It never will. Every sunrise begins in darkness. Every harvest begins with unseen seeds. Every meaningful journey begins long before anyone notices it. Maybe our story has already begun. Maybe it's simply being written in two different places until the day our paths finally become one. When that day comes, I don't want us to meet as two people desperately searching to be completed. I want us to meet as two whole hearts ready to share a complete life together. Until then, I'll continue becoming the man I hope deserves your trust. Oh, and I hope you'll continue becoming the woman whose kindness survives every disappointment. Because love isn't found by people who stop believing. Then it's found by people who refuse to let pain define what they believe is possible. And if this message somehow reaches your heart before life allows our paths to cross, then let these be the words you carry with you whenever the waiting becomes difficult. That you are not forgotten, you are not behind, and you are certainly not too late. Linda, some of the most beautiful things in life take the longest to arrive. Melenja, I know there will be days when you'll wonder if anyone is thinking about you. Days when you'll question whether the love you've imagined is only a dream. Days when you'll watch other people celebrate anniversaries, engagements, weddings, and growing families while your own story still feels unwritten. When those days come, I hope you remember this. Comparison has stolen more joy than failure ever has. Someone else's chapter has nothing to do with your timing. Every story has its own beginning. GMBN's every heart has its own journey. Every life unfolds according to lessons that cannot be rushed. So please, never believe you're falling behind. You're simply walking a road that's uniquely yours. Amlians, while we've been living separate lives, I like to think we've both been collecting the same invisible treasures. Benjamin, lessons, patience, wisdom, grace, strength, the ability to forgive, the courage to trust again. Those are gifts no expensive wedding can replace, because a wedding lasts a day. A marriage is built by the people we become long before that day arrives. Sometimes I imagine our first conversation after we finally met, not because I want a perfect script, Lanes, but because I wonder how many moments we'll laugh about. Bands, maybe you'll tell me about the days you almost gave up. Maindens, maybe I'll tell you about the nights I almost settled. Upset. Maybe we'll both realize that life was protecting us from relationships that looked right but weren't truly meant for us. And perhaps we'll smile together, knowing that every unanswered prayer was quietly answering a much bigger one. Means I don't dream about a relationship without disagreements. I dream about a relationship where respect survives every disagreement. Men, I don't dream about never making mistakes. I dream about having the humility to admit them. Mullins, I don't dream about never facing storms. I dream about holding your hand while we walk through them together. Benda, because love isn't measured by how loudly people say, I love you. But love is measured by what remains after the emotions settle, when life becomes ordinary, when responsibilities become heavy, when sickness visits, when finances become difficult, when dreams take longer than expected. Real love quietly says, I'm still here. Jeans, that's the kind of promise I hope we both protect, not because promises are easy to make, then because they're sacred to keep. There will be mornings when one of us wakes up discouraged. Mend, the other will become encouragement. There will be evenings when one of us feels exhausted. The other will become strength. Shen Dian, yes, there will be seasons when one of us forgets how valuable we are. The other will gently remind us. Mom, that's partnership, not carrying each other's lives, helping each other carry life's weight. Baines, I've also realized something beautiful about waiting. Waiting has taught me gratitude. Band, years ago I prayed for love because I feared loneliness. Today I pray for love because I understand responsibility. Men, love isn't only receiving someone's heart, it's protecting it. It's choosing words that heal instead of wound. But it's creating an environment where honesty feels safe. Jand, it's becoming the kind of person another human being can trust with their dreams, fears, weaknesses, and future. And that's a responsibility I'll never take lightly. Bance, if one day you become my wife, I don't want you to wonder whether you're appreciated. I want gratitude to become part of our everyday life. I want us to celebrate ordinary moments. Then his morning coffee shared before work, conversations after long days, quiet walks, small victories, simple laughter. Cleans, because I've discovered that extraordinary marriages aren't built by extraordinary events. Langis, they're built by ordinary moments treated as extraordinary gifts. And if children one day become part of our story, I hope they grow up watching two imperfect people who choose each other every single day. Belenja, not because love is effortless, because love is intentional. I want them to learn that respect belongs inside every conversation. That forgiveness is stronger than pride, that honesty is always worth protecting, that kindness is never weakness. And that commitment is a decision renewed daily. Bondo. Even if life leads us through unexpected valleys, I hope we never forget why we started walking together. Mumjuice, I hope we never stop listening, never stop laughing, never stop praying for each other. Immune, never stop becoming better than we were yesterday, because relationships don't slowly fall apart by accident. Menju, they slowly grow stronger through consistent care. Today as I stand here sharing these thoughts, I no longer see waiting as empty time. Then I see it as holy preparation for conversations we haven't had yet, for memories we haven't created yet, Dembilans, for challenges we haven't overcome yet, for a lifetime we haven't started yet. So wherever you are, future wife, keep believing, keep growing, keep protecting your gentle heart without closing it, keep choosing character over convenience, keep choosing hope over fear. And because somewhere in this world, there's still a man trying every day to become worthy of the woman he's praying for. And that man is me. Until the day our paths finally cross, I'll continue walking with faith instead of fear. I'll continue choosing integrity when shortcuts seem easier. I'll continue believing that love built on truth, loyalty, respect, patience, and grace still exists. Lens, because I refuse to let a world filled with temporary relationships convince me that lifelong commitment is impossible. I believe our meeting won't simply be an accident. Belinda, it will be the meeting of two hearts that never stopped preparing. Bands, two souls that never allowed disappointment to destroy hope. On two people who refused to settle because they believed peace was worth waiting for. And when that day finally comes, when our eyes meet for the very first time, when our separate journeys become one shared road, I won't remember how long I waited. I'll only remember that every step was worth taking. So until then, please don't leave before we even meet. Don't stop believing before our story has the chance to begin. Bond. Don't let yesterday's pain cancel tomorrow's promise, because somewhere between your patience and mine, between your prayers and mine, between your healing and mine, a beautiful future is quietly waiting. And when we finally find each other, we'll both understand that the greatest miracle wasn't that we met. Millions, the greatest miracle was that despite everything life put us through, we never stopped believing that we would